Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Ali and in today's video we are discussing the care of special needs chinchillas. But first, a little disclaimer. I know, boring, right? If you have a chinchilla that you think has a medical issue and it's not been diagnosed yet, your first port of call should always be your vet. Okay, so that's my little disclaimer. Now, that being said, I do have a fair amount of experience in caring for chinchillas with special needs. I have owned or currently own chinchillas that have been born blind, chinchillas with neurological issues, chinchillas that have had accidents and have had to have limbs amputated, chinchillas that have had eyes removed, and chinchillas with dwarfism. Now, in terms of their diet, that's pretty much the same regardless, good quality pellets and hay. If you think your chinchilla needs some extra supplements or you think they benefit for extra supplements, seek advice from your vet first before you do any changes like that. But generally on the whole, the diet is actually pretty similar. The main changes come from their housing, so their cage setup, and also the time they spend outside their cage. So with chinchillas with special needs, the main difference would be the size of your chinchilla's cage. And what I'm really talking about is how tall it is. It's much better to go for a shorter cage if possible. It can still be quite wide and quite deep, but it just needs to be that little bit shorter. The reason for this is chinchillas with eye issues or chinchillas that have amputated limbs, they can lose their balance quite quickly, and in a tall cage it can be quite easy for them to fall and injure themselves. Now, this is particularly true with chinchillas that have neurological issues because they can become disorientated and fall quite frequently. Now, if you do already have a cage that is quite tall, don't worry, it can be modified to be safe for your chinchilla. You need to have nice big ledges that span the entire width of your chinchilla's cage. These will act as platforms so that if your chinchilla was to fall, the ledges will break their fall and reduce injury. They need to be big and wide ledges, so small ledges that chinchillas have for hopping on from one ledge to another are not necessarily good for a chinchilla with special needs because they can fall off of those quite easily. It needs to be quite big, substantial ledges for them, and this will help reduce the chance of injury. Also, things you can do are put soft material at the bottom of your cage, such as fleece or some form of bedding like wood shavings, something quite soft that if they were to fall on it, it's going to reduce the chance of injury. Now, with chinchillas with sight issues, so blind chinchillas or partially sighted chinchillas, consistency and familiarity are the key. So once you've designed a cage and you're happy with it, try not to make any changes to it because a chinchilla will learn where things are, and any changes will cause confusion for the chinchilla. So with chinchillas with sight issues, it's probably best to keep it as similar as you can and try not to make too many changes to the chinchilla's cage. Now, the food and water bottle should be situated on the ground level so they can easily access their food and water. Okay, the next thing is, can chinchillas with special needs have wheels? And I would strongly advise against the use of wheels with a chinchilla that has some special needs. Now, I don't really care if big influence tell you that wheels are mandatory and there's no excuse for not having a wheel and blah de blah de blah. Honestly, it frustrates me. The reason why we say no wheels for chinchillas that suffer with blindness or limbs missing is because they can lose their balance very easily, and if they lose their balance at high speed while running on a wheel, it can have disastrous consequences. I have heard of chinchillas doing themselves some real damage after losing their balance on a wheel and being flung across the cage at high speed. Likewise, it is exceptionally dangerous for chinchillas with neurological issues, as not only can they become extremely disorientated, they are also more prone to seizures, and overstimulation can result in a seizure which can lead to death of your chinchilla. So you've got to be really careful with chinchillas with neurological issues. Now, as you know, I'm not someone that will say you must do this and you must do that, and I'm fully aware that all pets are different. You know your chinchilla best and you have to decide what is best for your chinchilla. But again, I would strongly advise on caution with wheels. Next, out of cage time. Now, some breeders would say that chinchillas that have special needs should not have time outside their cage playing. Absolutely no playtime at all. Now, I would say it depends on the situation of your chinchilla and also what precautions you put in place. With chinchillas that have limbs missing, yes, they can still have playtime. It's still okay for them, but it can put a lot of extra stress on the chinchilla's body. So it's best to limit the amount of playtime they have outside their cage to around 10 to 15 minutes. Any more than that, you're going to be possibly doing the chinchilla some damage. Yeah, just limit it and be sensible about how long you have your chinchilla out for if they have limbs missing. Now, with chinchillas that are either blind or partially sighted, you have to be even more cautious. I know of a couple who let their chinchilla out for playtime, and as you know, chinchillas sometimes like to run really fast at full speed in their play area, and their chinchilla was out playing and gathering some speed, and because she couldn't see, she went smack bang headfirst into a wall and actually broke her neck and died shortly afterwards. So if you have a partially sighted chinchilla, I would say a playpen is probably a much safer option than having them out in a room, somewhere where they cannot charge about too much and do not have contact with very hard surfaces such as doors and walls. Now, when it comes to a chinchilla with neurological issues, I personally would not let them out for playtime in a pen or in a room, as it's far too dangerous for them. My chinchilla Mira has a few neurological issues and she actually hates being out of her cage. It actually really freaks her out. So I don't have her out at all. Instead, I interact with her in her cage. You could have a chinchilla out for a wander on a bed or on a sofa for a minute or two. That wouldn't be too bad, but having them out running around on the floor will just stress them out. And because they have neurological issues, they can become so disorientated. They are more prone to seizures as well, and it can become life-threatening if they were to have a seizure. That being said, again, I know every chinchilla is different. Some chinchillas have mild neurological issues and some chinchillas have major neurological issues. And you know your chinchilla best. So you need to do your own risk assessment to decide how cautious you need to be with playtime. But I would just say, especially with chinchillas with neurological issues, you need to be extremely cautious. So that's the main differences with their care. It's all about their cage setup really, and making sure it is safe for them, so that if they were to fall, lose their balance, then it wouldn't do them too much of an injury. And also just to be careful with the out of cage time and making sure that it's safe for them. Now, if you think your chinchilla may be blind, or if you think your chinchilla may be suffering from neurological issues, then it's best to go to a vet for a firm diagnosis before putting any changes in place. If your chinchilla is constantly losing their balance, then obviously modify your cage to benefit your chinchilla. But yeah, I would seek a professional opinion on what's going on with your chinchilla if you think your chinchilla may be partially sighted or may have some neurological issues. So I hope you found this video informative, and I will see you in another one very soon. Goodbye for now.